Hello and welcome to On the Corner, the official podcast, pitcherlist.com. I'm your host, Eric Samulski, joined by the man himself, Nick Pollack. Nick, happy Monday.
What is happening? I apologize. I didn't get a chance to update the bottom one, so it's a little different date. It is 4/71 on August 26th. That's on me, guys. It's completely me, but it's because I just did so much work, and we're going to talk about it all today.
If you are watching on YouTube, that's what Nick's referring to, the date and the episode number of On the Corner. The work that Nick's referring to is that we have a different type of list here starting this week. We talked about this last week. We are going away from the top 100, moving into the schedule-based list, team by team. Who are their remaining schedules? What does that do to pitching matchups? So, Nick, just explain the thought process that we are going to be talking through today.
Yeah, so this is going to be my ability to actually I need to hold on one second. I had to fix something, guys. All right, there we go. I blocked out Josh from that lovely sheet. Okay, hi. What's up, guys? We're live on YouTube. Doesn't matter. Anyway, this lovely thing that we made today is all about looking at the future schedule of every team and every player and saying, look, there are a lot of guys that are just going to be on your team and you are going to start them and it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. Who are the ones who are in this no man's land of you normally, I think, stick around with them, but then the schedule's not very good. And it's highlighting, look, you might want to avoid these guys and you might want to stream these. And I have tiers for each kind of player from auto start to solid. You feel really good about it. Just not, maybe you might bench a few to your Tobies and your bombs. That is like you think it's good enough. And also the ones who could be upside plays, but also maybe too risky to hold on to. Then the ones that are highlighted as early streams and then also highlighted as late streams. So the ones that you might want to consider early on in the next couple of weeks, and then other ones that might be circled for later in September. Then the ones that are like, okay, I don't really expect them to do well, but I can understand how Jonathan Cannon can go 6 innings if you really need something in a given night. And then there are the ones that like, look, it's just too low of a chance to really go and chase this and do not start them. So that's what I did for every single player. We have expected schedules made. Josh Mockhamstern and Kyle Bland, thank you guys so much for helping out to utilize this. We're using our RotoWire feed that we have to generate these expected starts. And this is what we're going to do today. We're going to go team by team. And at the end, we're going to talk about the ones that gain the most and are the ones that you might want to move on from because their schedule isn't so good.
Yeah. So just as a heads up, we love to banter. We love to kind of give you great analysis. This one will be a little bit, cold, hard calculating. We got to get through all the teams. And then at the end, as Nick said, we're going to talk about the guys who are more immediately impacted with like stock up, stock down because of the schedule type of stuff. As a friendly disclaimer at the top, schedule stuff is always, potentially could change with rain delays and a pitcher woke up like Shane Baz with the flu and had his start get bumped and things like that. So this document is great. These articles are great. Please make sure that you're also just kind of like continuing to check who's starting or not. You go to Pitcher List for Nick's updates. You can use the RotoWorld blurbs that we do all the time over there, talk about who's pitching or not pitching. So just keep an eye on that kind of stuff because it will shift, right? So if 1 week somebody is a void, but then their schedule changes, that may make their distinction change the next Monday. So make sure you are checking the list every Monday just to see how those kind of things shape.
Definitely. And yeah, I have my daily rankings in the morning as well. And of course, just come on into the playback stream. I mean, I live stream every morning. I'll be continuing that on Wednesdays. I'm flying off to San Francisco, which by the way, on Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, go to Garage to join me and Eno Saris for a special live stream event of the craft. We're also going to have other members from the industry there. Justin Mason and Daniel Salinger will be there, for example. Maybe some KC Bubba, some Jake Crumpler. It's going to be a great time, so come on by. It's completely free. We'll start potting around like 5:30 Pacific time. It's a live stream of the craft in San Francisco at Garage. So be there this Friday, August 30th. Okay. Eric, let's get to it.
We're jumping in. We're going to start right off the bat with Arizona, and there is news in Arizona because Ryan Nelson now officially in the rotation.
As he should. It's great. You might want to move on from Merrill Kelly. And Eduardo Rodriguez, I don't know how good we feel about that. Same with Brandon Fott. The you have some Dodgers and your Astros in here. But Ryan Nelson, honestly, it's just that Houston game. And even that I would just go with because the fastball's so good. And Zach Gallen, I moved into the second tier instead of the top tier because, I mean, he just went Blake Snell blueprint, which is weird and not normal for him. And he has the Dodgers. He's got Coors in here. He's got going to Milwaukee, and the Padres as well. It's really just like one start of the Giants that is appealing. So it might not be great. And really, if you don't want to hold Kelly, like you don't have to. You really don't.
I know we said we weren't going to banter, but did you see the photo of Zach Gallen's elbow that was floating around the internet?
No.
The Diamondbacks posted a photo, like a screenshot of him with his stat line below it. And his elbow looks like Jaden Daniels' elbow when the LSU thing that went viral. It is just like sticking straight out like a shelf.
My gosh.
It is wild. I would recommend everybody to go look it up.
I mean, this is I'm seeing one from like May 2021, and it's just, oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's somebody who's had some issues with their arms. Anyway, another person who had issues with their arms and then returned, it's the Atlanta Braves and Reynaldo Lopez back in the rotation and looking as good as he was before he left.
Yeah, it's all these guys are pretty much auto, save for Charlie Morton, who's a Toby or a bomb. He's a cherry bomb. But the general schedule, I mean, there are the Phils and the Dodgers for these guys. But I mean, Schwellenbach is here. He gets both of those. I'm starting him. I don't really care, Mr. Crescendo. I think Max Fried is getting much better. And Reynaldo Lopez, as you mentioned, his slider was so good. It's a huge deal for him as his four-seamer lived above. So, yeah, I'm just starting these guys.
Boom. We've got just a shifting names for the Orioles rotation. Obviously, right now, Cole Irvin is in the rotation. They said that Zach Eflin should have a minimum stay on the IL. So Zach Eflin should return soon and kind of push Cole Irvin out of the rotation. How are you attacking the Orioles?
With the Orioles, Burns is close to not being an auto. I would not start him against the Dodgers, and I would be tempted not to against the Yankees in his last game. But don't think too far ahead about the Yankees. I mean, really, after that, it's such a good schedule. We got the White Sox, we got the Rays, we got the Tigers twice, and other guys get the Giants in there. It's just really, you have the Dodgers and Coors this week, Yankees late, and Boston in Fenway, which is really bad in between. Mm-hmm. So you can get some streams, I think, later on with Cade Povich and Albert Suarez with that Washington and Giants and Tigers matchups. Otherwise, I'm pretty out here. I mean, Eflin, you're just going to kind of go with if he's healthy. And Dean Kramer, I don't really want to do. That's a desperate stream to me. I think he's just far too inconsistent.
Yeah. Red Sox up next. Only two series that really stand out as poor, and they're back-to-back against the Orioles and the Yankees. So you can kind of manage around that for these Red Sox starters.
Yeah, they're not. I don't really know what to make of Cutter Crawford at the moment. Mm-hmm. And Tanner Houck at least gets the Tigers next, so fine. Same with Nick Pivetta, because how is the Cutter good enough? Is it not? Is Sweeper good enough? But he does get the Tigers and White Sox after the suspended game against the Jays today. For the most part, I'm just starting these guys. I think Brian Bayo didn't look as good last time, fine. But right, Orioles in Fenway is bad, and generally in Fenway is bad. So you see also this Minnesota game series later on. You might want to avoid it by the end. But there are White Sox, there are Tigers. There are two different series against the Rays involved here. You're going to want to do most of these guys there.
Boom. Cubs seem to have Jordan Wicks back in the rotation now, but the matchups are kind of hit or miss for these Cubs starters.
Yeah. I didn't know what to make of Jordan Wicks. I was tempted to put him as a Toby or a bomb, and I put him at desperate streamer because it could work out by the end. He only has one bad matchup as of right now against the Dodgers. Otherwise, it's the Nationals and the Pirates and Oakland and the Nationals again, and then the Reds away from Cincinnati. But is it really going to be worth it for you? We saw some hints of fun earlier in the season with a good changeup and four-seamer upstairs. Lots of vert on that for Jordan Wicks, but how are they going to use him and everything? I don't know. What's more interesting is Javier Assad going 7 innings again. And you went against the Nationals. It goes against the Nationals next. But the thing is, it's the Yankees and Coors and the Athletics and the Phillies after that in 4 straight. And to me, that's just, if you have to bend over backwards to get that national start, I don't really feel like it's worth it because that's just one game. And how much is Javier Assad really going to help in one game? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'd rather go after Jameson Taillon for his next game, which is the Pirates, and then the Pirates again. I'd rather just go for that. That's the way I see it here. Otherwise, it's like Steele and Wicks. Sorry, Steele and Managa, and you're going to go for those guys.
Yeah, unless you had Assad for his 2-start week last week and just held on to him, and then cool, keep him on your roster. White Sox. It seems like you wouldn't start a lot of White Sox guys, but yes, I am starting Davis Martin in his 2-start week in my AL Tout Wars league this week.
I can see that. I was actually considering putting Davis Martin higher in a different tier. I put him as a desperate streamer because I don't know how much I really bank on the changeup being so good. He threw more sliders last time. He kind of spread it all out, and I don't really like that slider. I really think the kick change that he has, similar to Hayden Birdsong's, is what is best for him. The fastballs don't really impress me that much. It is a decent schedule, though, right? You have the Tigers and the Mets this week, and then it's going to Fenway. You're facing the Guardians. You don't really want to do. At least it's not in Cleveland.
Gets sweet at the end, though. Angels.
It does. Tigers. I mean, I should mention this side of this article. I'm going to, guys. It's going to be out by the time you're listening to this. The 7th start, it can never be depended on. Right. 6 is what you should bank on. If Davis Martin ends the season, everything is normal with 5 starters straight through, which very rare. It would be at Detroit to end the year. Probably not going to happen. So just think of it as 2 games against the Angels, which could work out well. So I would probably even say he's a late streamer and maybe 1 game against the Tigers, but I wouldn't even want to really risk at the or against the Tigers right now for Davis Martin. He's at the bottom of questionable, and we'll kind of see how he looks for the next 4 to become that streamer later on.
Yep. Some interesting names in the Reds rotation, but that schedule is not really giving. And I don't really know how we feel about these Red starters.
And look at us blazing through, by the way. We're killing it. I do want to mention with the White Sox, Garrett Crochet, I don't really know what to do with him. So you do whatever you want. Chris Flexen, Kai Bush, you don't want to touch. And Jonathan Cannon, as I mentioned before, might get a start against the Tigers and win your league. Honestly, that could be like the start that saves your league. If you're trying to figure out like the last week, the White Sox get the Angels and the Tigers. And both of those teams are going to be like, we're done with the year. So you're going to see these guys try to establish things before they get out the door. And you can see like Jonathan Cannon leaving it all on the table before he goes into hibernation. So consider that one. But Kai Bush and Chris Flexen, absolutely not. Hibernation. He's a cannon, though. You can't really stop his fuse. All right. Cincinnati, though. Nick Lodolo, you got to roll with that. Even though I'm not really loving what he's doing, it's fine. Carson Spires is a desperate one. I don't really want to. You have Andrew Abbott, who should come back at some point. This is always also the hardest part about this is figuring out when injured guys return.
Right.
That changes everything. He becomes a interesting cherry bomb, essentially. It's Atlanta, which is honestly not that bad right now. Minnesota, Pittsburgh, and the Cubs. And then you have like Nick Martinez and Casey Kelly. I don't want to touch. Rhett Lauder, is he actually starting this week? I don't know. That'd be really cool. But then does he stick around? I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. So we'll see there. It's for really what it is with the Reds. Like you might see Hunter Green at some point, probably not. It's just Nick Lodolo and then maybe Andrew Abbott.
Love the sound effect there. The Guardians getting back Alex Cobb this week, which does kind of mean that Joey Cantillo, who has been making some spot starts and will make another one today, is going to be out of the rotation, and they'll get a 5 of Gavin Williams, Tanner Bybee, Ben Lively, Matthew Boyd, and Alex Cobb. What are you doing with those 5 guys?
I would say with Cleveland, it's just Gavin Williams, Tanner Bybee, and Ben Lively. I mean, maybe some Matthew Boyd early and middle. Like I want to avoid the Dodgers completely. So it gets Pittsburgh, it gets the Dodgers and the White Sox. And that could actually work out for Boyd, even though I don't love his slider right now, only 2 whiffs in his last game. Then it's the Twins and Cardinals. If he's really cruising there, you might want to push it. Then, of course, Houston at the end. So there might be something to grab from Boyd. Just pay attention to those 2 games. Ben Lively's doing his thing, though, which is kind of wild. Like, he is doing the absurd high, I just throw fastballs over the plate and it works out.
Yeah.
And it's bonkers to me. Tanner Bybee, you're just going to roll with and whatever. And Gavin Williams, I think there's more here than meets the eye. Like I think his 4-seamer is elite. I compared him to Garrett Crochet because last start it was cutters for strikes. And if he does that, that's right-handed Garrett Crochet with the same kind of velocity and extension on his fastball. There's a lot of hype there for me, but he's got to prove it. He's got Dodgers in 3 games. Not fun there.
Yeah. Yeah, Ben Lively, good schedule coming up too. I feel like we can be quick about the Rockies because I don't really think you're rostering any of these guys.
Don't do it.
Let's move on. The Tigers are interesting because people will see the name Ty Madden and remember that he was one of the top pitching prospects for the Tigers at a point out of the University of Texas, but the results have not been good at all. And many of the Tigers beat writers are actually suggesting that they called Madden up now because they want to give him starts against big league hitters to see if he's going into the offseason as a reliever or a starter, because there is some thought that his pitch mix will play up better as a reliever where he can just go fastball slider. So I feel like maybe we don't want to be too fooled by the name value that some may attribute to Ty Madden.
Yeah, I mean, I put him as a cherry bomb in / Toby just because the schedule is so good.
The schedule's great.
It's Chicago, Red Sox, Oakland, in Oco.
What if it was Jackson Joe, but that schedule? Ooh,
yeah, I know, but it won't be because he's not even in AAA yet.
I know. I'm just saying. We could dream.
It's the worst. But yeah, so don't say that, man.
Sorry.
No, I actually would be surprised if Ty Madden makes all 6 of these starts and not even including the 7th one, just because, as you mentioned, I don't think the Tigers are thinking too highly of Ty Madden. I mean, he did have some good strikeout games recently in AAA, but analyzing it through our PL Pro app of game cards that we have for every pitcher, you can actually do a date range and see the effectiveness of each pitch. Not impressive. I'm not really in love with his fastball. His slider is fine. It's like nothing is saying, oh man, this is the guy to get. Mm-hmm. It's possible that he shows up and does something really interesting and we love him, but I have timid expectations at this point. Well, Brant Herter / Brian Sammons, whatever. I mean, it's really, what's interesting is that's just really the Angels. And yeah, you have Boston fine at Oakland, but then it's Baltimore and then the Royals. You might want to be jumping off sooner rather than later. There's also the Padres that he happens to dodge. I don't want to touch Kider Montero. Casey Mize might return. You might, and maybe there's some Matt Manning at some point. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he's actually hurt and done for the year. But Casey Mize, if you can find a slider, that'd be great. I don't know if he has yet, but apparently I was talking to the podcast with Evan Petzold and Mark Garoche yesterday, which you guys got to listen to. Which they were saying, yeah, the Tigers sent down Casey Mize just to learn his slider. So maybe that actually happened. That'd be pretty cool. That's a great podcast. Go listen to those guys. But that'd be really fun. So I have him in the Tobies and Bombs, and obviously you're just going to start Derek Skubal the rest of the way.
Tobies and Bombs. We got some good pitchers here with a 6-man rotation right now for the Houston Astros.
Yeah, the Houston Astros. I mean, this isn't the best schedule, but it really has just one really bad matchup, which is the Phillies right out of the gate. Then, yeah, you go to Sin City. You have to deal with Arizona a little bit. You have to deal with the Padres. You have to go to Cleveland. But the staff is so good right now. I mean, I love Kikuchi. I love Valdez right now and Blanco. Verlander, Brown, and Arrighetti are also all here. For the most part, I feel like you're just starting these guys. Mm-hmm. They've been winning so many games and they have a good defense behind them. You just kind of go with it. There's nothing really to report on any of them. Yeah.
I would say just keep an eye on what they do, because we don't know if they're going to stay 6-man the whole time. So just keep an eye on what the Astros plan to do. Maybe with some of these guys, like a guy like Blanco, who has pitched a lot more innings than they expected. Maybe it's a skip start type of situation.
Sure.
This feels like a team that where you're going to have to do the most work on their schedule, because I could see it just being skip a start here, piggyback here, and just like a little bit of a mess.
It could be that because they are a 6-man. That they're able to essentially go 5-man with everybody missing one, and then kind of rotating around it. But with it being a 6-man and likely a day off for most of these weeks, you could just do that really once a week they pitch, and that might be enough for them. But I am curious really that Arrighetti gets at Philly, at Cincinnati, Oakland, and then at the Padres. And I debated that of like, is that a cherry bomb or is it a solid right now? I feel like Arrighetti has done more to prove that he can throw strikes more consistently, but Arrighetti might be a trap play here. Same with Verlander with the same setup, and you have Hunter Brown at least has Kansas City instead of the Phillies, and who has just figured it out, I guess, of like, I'm going to throw 6 things and something's going to work today. So I guess you got to go with Hunter Brown. I'm definitely more confident in him than Verlander and Arrighetti.
Yeah. The Royals are a perfect example of this. Like, not a lot of streams early, and then definitely a lot of streams late.
Yeah. So the Royals also just had a scare today with Cole Reagans, where he left his game. We didn't know why. Fortunately, they reported
just
as a
cramps,
cramp.
maybe just
Oh,
cramps.
thank gosh. He just got one of his 3 tough matchups out of the way. That was the Guardians, and now it's the Astros, Twins, and then Yankees. But it looks like it's going to be Detroit and then Washington, and I'd be really surprised if he makes that final game against Atlanta. So I would really pin these guys down for 6. You're going to do that. Lorenzen has a really bad stretch in the beginning, and then he gets some nice matchups to the end. He's certainly circled as that late streamer. Same with Waka. Both of them are going to get 3 of the Pittsburgh Pirates series, Tiger series, Giants series, and Nationals. Love that. That's just so nice. While Singer is, of course, always a cherry bomb. And Seth Lugo, I don't know what to do with this. Because do you really want to start Seth Lugo right now at Houston versus Cleveland and at New York?
Probably not. No.
The Yankees. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's been bad command. So, but then again, at the end, it's the Tigers and the Giants in Atlanta. I don't know. These are the tough decisions you have to make for yourself.
Right.
Consider the next 2 weeks far more important than the final 4 weeks. I can't express that enough. Value now is so much better than potential later because you do not know if that start's going to happen for that guy down the road.
Yeah, and that's always when Nick mentions it's about your team. Like, can you stash a guy on your bench?
Yeah.
Maybe you can. Maybe you're in a good spot. Maybe you have a bye in your playoffs next week and you don't have to use him. All that kind of stuff. You need to take your own team context into consideration as we're going through this, especially when we get to the part at the end of the podcast where we're saying, like, stock up, stock down. If somebody's stock is down because their next 2 starts are bad, but you don't need them in their next 2 starts, then, put the pieces together for yourself and figure out that, you can use them again later on. It's just going to be different for each and every person. I think what's similar for most people, though, is that you're not really starting a lot of these guys on the Angels.
No, you're not. And I want to talk actually about a couple of them after this break. Gotcha.
I'm letting you have it. Because I don't.
Oh, you let me have it. I was like, why isn't he not doing that?
Because we are all over the place with the type of with the organization, the schedule today. I don't know, but now I know we're doing them, and I'll get you on the next one.
Okay, there we go. So the Angels, there are a couple guys that you might be tempted to do, especially in the next series, which is the Tigers and the Mariners. It's Johnny Cueto for 2 against the Tigers and Mariners, and you go, oh, that's Johnny Cueto, right? Then you have like an amazing Vargas role like 2 years ago or something like that, where Cueto just could not stop having Cueto magic. Yeah, you can't do that. Jack Kahanowitz is your desperate streaming option because the guy is a sinker baller. And he actually locates it well. Like, it's arm side exclusively or down and glove side exclusive. Like, he goes between the 2, but that's it. That's all it is. And it's like 95, 96. He has the grace of Koufax, as I like to say, whenever it's a good BABIP day. But he's going to get the Dodgers, and he's going to get the Twins, he's going to get the Astros and the Astros. So there might be something with the White Sox down the stretch. But, yeah, you generally don't want to do it. Carson Fulmer had a moment. It was Carson Fulmer, man. Was the SP Roundup. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. And then Griffin Canning had 2. I don't know. Tyler Anderson, though, is actually kind of lucky. He doesn't get the Dodgers. He only gets 1 of the Houston games. And I think if you have Tyler Anderson, you just see this one out. And Jose Soriano will hopefully return at some point. I think I only go for him if he gets any of those Chicago White Sox games.
Sure. And another name to keep an eye on here in this whole situation is if the Angels decide they like Reed Detmers enough to let him pitch in big league games again.
Absolutely.
Because he's been looking really good in AAA, and that's a name that, would vault to the top of this rotation in terms of pure raw talent.
Right. And that really is a good reminder of, like, this is how it is right now. Something's going to change. Someone's going to replace or whatever it is. And what's really helpful with it is we keep the schedule in order. So you can slot that guy into that person's rotation spot, move this one up mentally to know then what that means when they do take over.
Another great example of that is the Dodgers. And you currently have 7 pitchers listed for them because we got a few guys on the IL who are going to be coming back. And, there's a lot of moving pieces here.
Absolutely. What do you do with Walker Buehler? I don't know. Jack Flaherty, obviously, you keep doing it. Tyler Glasnow, I put in a bombs and Toby's. Why? Because he only gets 3 starts technically. I mean, we're just guessing that he returns in time for Atlanta. and then the Rockies and the Rockies. So one is on the road and one is in Coors. But the thing is, the Dodgers are not going to push him in those. They're going to try and make sure that he's good to go for the playoffs. Not to mention they also have a bye, likely, entering the playoffs. That's the guess there. So they want to make sure that Glasnow isn't rushed. They'll probably have something in between that first series too. That all of that combined means you don't know if you really want to hold on to Tyler Glasnow. You don't know when it's going to happen. I don't think you need to hold on with this haze. It's just like you're going to get a 75 pitch game. Maybe it's one that's amazing. That's awesome. It's just not enough if you're going to have a roster spot dedicated to it. Bobby Miller. Did you watch that game with Bobby Miller?
I didn't yet. No.
Okay. My takeaway, I'm curious what yours was from the stat sheet and everything. First, I should say.
You're talking about the last Bobby Miller,
the 9 strikeout game that he had, 3 earned runs. He allowed a home run on a changeup that was down the middle, and they were still out in front of it, and they just hooked it down the line for a 2-run shot. It was really annoying, but
yeah.
Like, are you confident with Bobby Miller right now?
So no, I have him on a few teams, and so the full season of what I've gotten from him means I'm not confident because I can't be. However, obviously 9 strikeouts, no walks. It was a slew of whiffs. I think he almost had like 20 whiffs, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Didn't he have the gallows pole that night?
Yep.
Right. So like all of that stuff is something that I'm obviously very interested in. I think another thing, if I remember correctly from looking at the StatCast of that, I'm trying to like pull it up as we're talking, but I don't remember exactly the day he pitched, was like it was a lot less four seam and he leaned into some of the breaking balls more, which may have been matchup related. But I'm intrigued by the fact that he's like trying to solve whatever these issues are. It's weird that included like going away from the four seam fastball. And I still like, I know you've talked about this a lot, but like we still haven't seen the slider that we saw last year.
What? Oh my gosh. It's so, he needs it so badly. Mm-hmm. Bobby Miller, you are throwing these four seamers that are really good, and you allowed a home run on like 100-mile-per-hour one, like 0-2 upstairs, and they just sold out for it, right? And it drives me nuts because all you need is the slider. And you tried even to get them out in front with a changeup. What happened? That one hit for a home run because you missed it down the middle. The curveball was good, but it's not the slider. And that is not something I believe to be consistent. And the fact that Bobby Miller actually did try to go four seamers upstairs, I'm like, yes, that's good. You need the slider. Mm-hmm. Where is it? Where is the slider? I put out the whole weekend GIF that I love, like me looking for Bobby Miller's slider, because it's just like, that's the last piece now. I don't think he's gonna get it. If he didn't throw it last game, it's like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
I don't think between now and the next start he's gonna get direction. Like, okay, cool, I'm gonna throw my slider now. That doesn't make sense to me, but I hope he does. I don't have any faith against the Orioles. There is a possibility at some point he does get it back. The question then becomes who gets displaced when Yamamoto and Glasnow return, right? So I don't know. It's a upside play. If you guys see the 9 strikeouts or whatever it was and 300 runs, and you think, oh well, he's fixed. He's not. He's going to get the Orioles now. I'm terrified of that.
Yes,
Gavin Stone is far better to me.
I think he's fixed enough for the Angels Cubs to start stretch.
I hope so. You don't know. Bobby Miller's a weird boy. We saw some like very mediocre starts against like Miami, right? I think it was like the Rays. That was against the Rays, by the way. I should apologize, but man, it's just, I don't know. Same thing with Walker Buehler. You would think this would be good, and it's not. So I don't know. And then same with Yamamoto. I think that he's going to get a little bit more of a leash than Glasnow is. I could be wrong. That could just be me assuming.
I could see that because they need to build him back up because he's been out for so long in a way where Glasnow can just kind of like be, I don't know, warmed up a little bit before the postseason. Like Yamamoto needs full, complete starts. And they might even need to see that he can go 6 if need be before he's like in a postseason rotation.
Absolutely. So yeah, interesting thing with the Dodgers, but Flaherty and Stone, you're good. And Kershaw, he's fine, I guess. I think if you have him, like, you're just going to do this. It's not really any terrible matchup. Maybe bench him against Arizona. I'll say that.
Yeah. For a brief period, we thought we were getting the Edward Cabrera that we always wanted.
I know.
And then we got Edward Cabrera, which is just
we get E-cabbed.
It happens all the time. There's not a lot to get excited about in this Marlins rotation right now, which is wild because I remember like maybe heading into last year, we were like, this is maybe the best young pitching staff in baseball. And obviously injuries will do that. But it's wild to just look at the lineup and say, no thanks, or look at the rotation and say, no thanks.
I mean, it's wild to think that there was a time when it was Luzardo and Sandy and Pablo Lopez in there. Eric Cabrera throwing so hard and everything. Yeah. Right now, it's Adam Aller who's kind of interesting. I led with Aller maybe, as in color maybe. And watching him, I saw that he's very close body. He's cross body, which makes his fastball actually can be really good. His 99th percentile total break, which is vert and horizontal break combined, making the hypotenuse of the triangle. As I remember, Saris told me in 2016, I was like, what is movement? If they say X and Y, like, what is movement? It's like, it's the hypotenuse. I'm like, oh, I get it. But Aller gets the Pirates and the Nationals and Atlanta and Toronto to end the year. And there might be something there to that. There's also the Giants next and then the Phillies. And I'm kind of like, let me see a little bit more first before I jump in for the Giants. But just think about it. It's a possibility. I don't like his breaking stuff. I obviously don't like the win chance. But if you're looking for something of like, this is kind of sneaky. If he is taking some sort of step with his curveball to be more consistent with that too, maybe his changeup, I don't know. There might be something there with Adam Aller.
Okay. Named a file away. We're getting that tease of a DL Hall start right now with the Brewers, and then it's going to be it again this week, just like we saw a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it might be. It might not. I mean, look, Tobias Myers, I think if you have him, you're probably just going to start him throughout. Obviously, he has some bad matchups against the Reds, the Diamondbacks, and the Phillies, but I think he's just kind of showcased that he's got enough of a level to be like, all right, it's fine. You have Freddie Peralta, who you're just going to obviously start. You have Colin Ray, who's on one of his weird moments again. But it's really just the early part. It's at Cincinnati, and then St. Louis, and then the Giants. And that's fine. But then you get the Phils, you get the Diamondbacks, and whatever you get from the Mets. Do what you want. Frankie Montas is actually the interesting one to me because Montas threw 97 yesterday and actually had the third best fastball according to Fan4Plus, which is crazy. If you guys don't know that, it's the 4 elements of getting a whiff, right? Velocity extension, IVB, and height adjusted VAA combined into one. So if Montes is doing that and he has the cutter that works, maybe that's decent for Rocky Road and the Giants after the start in Cincinnati. As for Savali and DL Hall, I don't really want to do Savali. It's a desperate stream because the breakers are just not good, even though he gets the Giants, Cardinals, and Giants. And you might see DL Hall get more starts. I just get a feeling that the Brewers are trying to figure out what they're going to do with their rotation for the playoffs. And you have Tobias Myers, you have Freddie Peralta, and you're probably going to have Frankie Montas in there. Who's the fourth? And whoever's not in that rotation is going to move to the pen. I think they're going to go Colin Ray or Aaron Savali at this point, which means they might want Savali in the bullpen to prep for the playoffs, which would mean that DL Hall would get starts. So there's something to consider with that. They might also want DL Hall in the bullpen too, and they might just have someone random to start instead. But that could be a solution here that gets DL Homer starts.
Would love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. Loving what we're getting from the rookie pitchers. Zebby Matthews was great for the Twins last time out. David Festa, continues to kind of go 5 innings and rack up strikeouts and have like a 3.6 to 4 ERA. But there's some interesting starts for these guys down the stretch.
Yeah, so you have obviously you have Zebby, who's really fun. It's really the first half. It's Jays, Rays, and Angels. And hopefully that makes me feel good enough against Cleveland, and then Fenway, and then Baltimore.
Yeah, he misses the Marlins start at the end.
Yeah, he doesn't get that 3-game series as of now. David Festa is someone to keep an eye on too, because it's Atlanta, who's not that strong right now, and the Rays and Royals and Cincinnati away from Cincinnati, which is kind of nice for a 4-game stretch. And then it's at Cleveland, but then it's Miami. So keep an eye on that. Simeon Woods Richardson has kind of proven that he's fine. Like you can just kind of start him. I think I'm giving him more credit watching him again of being more in control of the tempo of every at bat.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
fastball velocity has been up all year because
Yeah, 94 now.
they really prevented him from, not prevented, but they shifted the way that he was thinking about like having to cut his fastball so much, and he's kind of like letting it rip a little bit more this year. And the added velo has actually helped him.
Yeah, that's nice. And of course, Pablo and Bailey, you're gonna just roll with.
Yes. There's a lot of green for the Mets pitchers. A lot of interesting matchups for some guys that have been kind of like hanging around the streamer radar for much of the year. Your Sean Manayas, your David Petersons, your Jose Quintanas. A lot of green for them.
Yeah. So Sean Manaea is honestly someone who's just been like, I'm good with my sinker upstairs. Stop talking about me, Nick. So I'm like, fine, just go have some fun. Luis Severino, I feel better about. It's just the problem is he gets 2 series against the Phillies, and then he has to start off with the Diamondbacks, and it's just like, oh, okay. I want to pick and choose as much as I can there. I don't want to touch Paul Blackburn. Maybe I should have him as a desperate stream, I guess, against Boston, but like I don't think he's really worth it, honestly. David Peterson is now become a solid because I even put it in my roundup being like, this is not sustainable, but he's doing it. And now he gets really nice starts against the White Sox.
Can I be the bearer of bad news here?
What's that?
There's something that didn't populate here from your roster resource carryover.
Oh, man. What's that?
Blackburn was put on the IL yesterday.
Oh, well, there you go. I already had a do not start there, so I guess
I think it's McGill.
Yeah, okay.
Ty
McGill sliding into that.
Yeah.
Also, maybe I'd say a desperate stream.
Mm-hmm.
Desperate streamer option is what we'll do there.
And they haven't. I will say, remember that they haven't officially announced it yet. They've been having Jose Budo pitch like 40 pitches out of the bullpen, so maybe there's a chance that they move Budo back in or stretch him out. I don't really know what's happening with Christian Scott, but just something to keep an eye on. It was a hand contusion for Blackburn because he got hit with a comebacker.
Oh, right. Right.
But it's just a bruise, like nothing was fractured. So I think the 2 weeks is kind of like the minimum stay is probably what you're likely to get.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So I would say for Quintana, you can maybe consider him as an early streamer against the White Sox and Cincinnati.
And then we have the Yankees.
That's about it.
Yeah. And then the Yankees also have they have a returning starter, Luis Gil on the IL. But all expectations were that like the lower back injury wasn't going to keep him out too long. Yeah. So we're getting Will Warren for now, but we should get Gil, in a week or so. And like the Mets, there's a lot of green on here for the Yankee starters.
Yeah, Cortez seems a little bit weird, but it's such a good stretch. Nationals, Cardinals, Cubs, Red Sox in the Bronx and at Seattle. Like, you got to do that. Garrett Cole, you're just going to do. Carlson Rodon, you're going to do. Will Warren is a desperate stream against the Cardinals. I've already been burned twice making the streamer pick of the day against weak lineup, so I don't know if I really want to do that. Stroman, you just got to do, despite me not being a biggest fan, because he doesn't have a top-tier offense to face, and it's just too good of a win chance. And when Gil returns, it's going to be at Chicago, then versus the Red Sox, and at Seattle, then the Orioles, and then versus Pittsburgh. And maybe it's not that exactly, but the only top-tier offense it's really just one series against Baltimore, and then one against the Royals, and that's it. Everything else is middle or worse. So the Yankees have a fantastic September ahead, and there can be a lot of wins to get out of this.
Yeah. And not a lot of these guys necessarily available on like waivers or something, but just if you're, deeper leagues, you got them on your bench, you're rotating starters out. Nice to know that you have those options for some really strong starts. There are some waiver guys in Oakland that we might be interested in picking up, but we'll get to those guys after this break.
I knew it. I
actually didn't know it until I looked at the time and I was like, yeah, I could do it now. I could do it now. And I did.
Way to be. I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you, Eric.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Listen, we have poo-pooed Osvaldo Bido on this podcast a couple times, suggesting maybe he wasn't so much of a high priority claim. He's been pitching well, and he gets the Reds in Great American Ballpark this week. Not ideal, but he and JP Sears get the Mariners, Tigers, and White Sox in a stretch in the middle, and that makes those two guys pretty intriguing.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in. I mean, for me, it's all about Beto coming through against the Rays. He looked as good as I've seen with like actually locating things and getting it the secondaries in the zone, and his four seamer going upstairs not being bad. I'm definitely in for those 3 outings. I don't want to start him against the Reds though. And there will be some moments of just like, nope, I am not good anymore. So it's up to you if you want to hold through the Reds for those other ones after. Yeah, I mean, like just like with JP Sears just blew up a bit, and maybe he returns in those other 3 good matchups as well. Mitch Spence looked really, really good, and he deserved the success he just had. And it makes me think, oh man, is there something to this, right? This was against the Rays. I know it was a Rays, but really good cutters and sliders, and also the sinker working arm side. And now he gets at Texas and the Tigers after the starting in Cincinnati. And I'm wondering if maybe there might be actually something that clicked there. You can't take a chance on Joe Boyle. That's just, if you're desperate, go ahead. And Joey Estes, well, you might want to use him as a streaming pick against the Rangers and the Mariners. But I don't really like it at Houston. I don't like it against the Yankees. And you might have it against the Cubs if you want, maybe against Seattle. So it's kind of up to you. I'm not really leaning towards any of these strongly, but I would say if I had to pick one, I would be going for Beto for that 3-start stretch.
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, I have some shares of both these guys coming down the stretch. Not a lot of waiver guys for the Phillies, but there are some decent matchups in here for a lot of these Phillies pitchers.
I mean, yeah, you're going to auto start Wheeler and Nola. And I even put Christopher Sanchez because, yes, it is the Houston Astros next. But after that, it's at Toronto, Miami, and the Mets twice, and the Cubs. And it's like, that's a lot of wins. You got to just do that. Ranger Suarez did not impress me in his return from the IL. I did not think that he had nearly the command that we used to see. It was a fine 5-inning result, but that was not peak Suarez. However, the schedule's great. Atlanta's weak right now. Then you get the Marlins and Rays, and then you get Milwaukee, Mets, Nationals. No top tier or even above average offense according to our offensive rankings. So, yeah, I guess we just got to do that one. And Taijuan Walker is still here, and we lost Turnbull for Taijuan Walker, guys. And I don't care what Phillies Twitter will tell me about how ridiculous I am about the Phillies. It wasn't the Phillies' fault. It's just a guy who's been injured or whatever. No. The Phillies ruined Spencer Turnbull. I don't care. They should not have removed him from the rotation when Taijuan Walker was coming back from injury earlier this year. I don't care how much money they're paying Taijuan Walker. You see how bad he was. And Turnbull was doing so well, and you just lost it. You got greedy thinking he might be good at this time. By this time of the year, getting back into it, it doesn't work like that. If the guy's in rhythm, you don't take him out of rhythm. Look what the Diamondbacks just did with Ryan Nelson and Jordan Montgomery. You don't take him out. You don't do it. So I'm sad. I'm still sad about it. Taijuan Walker.
You should be. You should be sad about it for a long time. And eventually we'll get over it. And you know what helps get over it is good news. Like Jared Jones is back this week.
Oh my gosh, he's back.
Confirmed starting on Tuesday against the Cubs.
I'm so happy.
Currently a 6-man rotation for the Pirates, potentially as a way to like limit Paul Skeens, but we don't really know how it's going to play out.
I don't know. It's so weird being like, no, we got to have a 6-man because we have to keep Jake Woodford in this rotation.
You got to do it.
We have to do it. Yeah, I guess. I mean, Mitch Keller, he's the same guy he's always been. You start Jared Jones out of the gate. He threw 75 pitches and 17 whiffs in that time or something stupid. Four-seamer was a 140 fan 4 plus, essentially 40% better than league average at earning, the chance of earning a whiff, which is insane. Paul Skeens also, duh. And Bailey Falter and Luis L. Ortiz. So what's interesting about your boy Ortiz here, Eric, four-seamers are a thing. And that four-seamer is flat now. It's like a 1.5, 1.6 height adjusted VAA, 96 miles per hour, generally throwing it in the upper half. It's pretty interesting. He didn't really have the best cutter and slider in his last start, but that's a major thing now. It used to be like, hey, sinkers, sliders, cutters, that's what I'm doing. And all of a sudden the four-seamer's like, nah, I got this. And that's actually the thing now. So he doesn't have the greatest schedule at all. It's at Cleveland, it's the Nationals, it's the Royals, at Cincinnati, and the Yankees. So I don't know if I really want to go for it, but it is the Nationals in there and then the Royals, and it could be good enough for Luis Ortiz. Are you holding on to him?
No. I mean, I was a fan. And I really do think that the stretch of games that he had was, unfortunate. A lot of the hey, he's been terrible over the last month was back-to-back starts against the Diamondbacks, who really lit him up. And that's a tough matchup. And then, getting the Padres twice and the Rangers isn't it's not like the worst schedule in the world, but it's not a good schedule.
Right.
And he did what he needed to do yesterday in a good start. But the problem is Guardians, Royals, at Cincinnati, Yankees, those aren't good matchups. If you're in the position to stream him, to pick him up and just use the national start, cool, all for it. I think you'll get 6 great innings from him then. But that's the only start I can see using him.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's the case. I mean, I'm going to at least give him some credit to saying, look, maybe you do actually do well against the Royals and in Cincinnati. Maybe also the schedule eases up and you get a St. Louis start. Maybe somehow you get a Miami Marlins start in there. Falter has that middle one right now of the Nationals, Miami and St. Louis, and that's pretty fun. I think Falter is undervalued universally because his four-seamer is really good at the top of the zone with amazing extension. And there are times that he gets a secondary to work in as well. You just don't want to start him against the Guardians, and you might want to hold on to him after with the Brewers. I don't know. It's a 4-start stretch of 2 of these should be good.
Right.
And we'll see which ones those are.
Yeah, it is. It's tough to work that out. It's not tough to work out how you're going to start a few of these Padres starters because, again, it is littered with green over here.
It's amazing. Randy Vasquez is a very sneaky starter. I believe this week, Cardinals and Rays. And then Cease, Musgrove, and King. I got to say, this Musgrove and Cease schedule is just unreal.
Yeah,
and this
is why Joe Musgrove looking pretty good since he came back.
This is why Musgrove is the lead. Joe Musgrove's threw a cutter according to Savant. However, it was 86, 87 to 91. And looking deeper into it, it felt like there were 2 different pitches. I had the standard cutter and then this more of a tighter, a gyro slider, as opposed to the older one that we know from 84. And I loved that latter pitch a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know if we see that more or something. I don't know. But this was a new Musgrove. That guy was cooking. And even though it wasn't 94, like that start in Colorado, it's probably going to be 92 and change moving forward. Fine. We got the Cardinals, we got the Tigers, we got the Giants, we got the White Sox in his next 5. Are you kidding? And they need to get him fully revved for the playoffs. He's missed a lot of time, so that's great. Obviously, Michael King is going to love his next 3. Sure, he has the Astros and the Diamondbacks in there, but whatever. Dylan Cease has pretty much the same thing as Musgrove, just replace the Detroit game with the Rays. Oh no, woe is me. Business is bad. Sorry, that is a Big Fat Greek wedding reference. And Martin Perez, Rays, Tigers, Seattle next. Sign me up. I know that the last start wasn't great as far as it was against the Mets and it wasn't nearly the command that we normally see from him. But my gosh, that is so good. I did actually see in the chat of being a little tepid on lefties against the Rays. The Rays are better against the lefties. Fine, I guess, if you want to not do that one, but at least do the Tigers and the Mariners. Well, Yu Darvish, I don't know. I don't know what it is with Yu Darvish. I don't know why he was gone. I don't know. And
we at least know he's back with the team.
Right. He is with the team. I don't know why he was out. I'm assuming it wasn't an injury because I think we would have known it would have been an injury.
They have said it. They have said it was not an injury. He was throwing live batting practice, but he was throwing live batting practice at a local high school because he was not with the Padres. But the idea is that he probably doesn't have as long to build up as we might expect, but he is on the IL with a groin injury now officially. And so we have no idea when he's coming back.
Yeah. So in other words, I wouldn't bother. I would say if you have Yu Darvish right now, I just wouldn't have him really on my team. I have him as a cherry bomb because technically it's the Giants twice and the Houston and Los Angeles Dodgers, but it could be him returning when Cease goes, and then it's the Giants and the White Sox. It could be a lot easier. I wouldn't expect Darvish to be back until really the Astros and Dodgers starts, and I don't want to start him for that. It's just too much of an unclear thing. So do what you want, but if you're in a roster crunch, I think you can move on from Darvish.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Kind of locked and loaded with this Mariners rotation. I mean, these guys have been in here pretty much all year with the occasional, Brian Wu stop and start, but and most of them are just starting all the time.
Isn't it so nice to get over 90 pitches of Brian Wu?
Yes, it's been very, very nice.
I don't know, Eric, where are you going to have him ranked for next year?
I don't know, man. I had him I think I had him 30 this year coming into the year. This is pre-injuries, but a lot of that was also hey, we need to see something besides you have a really good fastball. There were some concerns with splits against lefties, and he has made some pitch mix changes to improve that. So something in the 20s right off the bat feels fair without even really breaking down how sustainable his changes are. And could he push to be a top 20 starting pitcher? Wouldn't surprise me.
He could be a top 10 starting pitcher. I mean, he's Zach Wheeler.
It took Wheeler a little while though, but yes.
No, I know. I understand. I'm not saying he is next year. I'm saying that is the comp for Brian Wu. Is the four-seamer is just so dominant and so consistent. He's a good command guy. Doesn't really have a dominating secondary to really pair with it, but that's not really holding him back for performing. The thing about Zach Wheeler that makes Zach Wheeler him is ability to not get hurt. I mean, he was for a moment, but really we trust Zach Wheeler every 5 days to go 7 innings. And that's the big question with Wu. So it's going to be so difficult to discern. All right, I really like Brian Wu so much skills wise, and injuries are weird, but we have to give a bigger injury ding to Brian Wu, right? That forearm thing is just weird. And
it is weird.
His whole body is also weird. Hamstrings and all this stuff. It's just I can't though. So it's going to be one of those that you're going to have a ranking and hate yourself on May 15th and then be fine with it July 3rd or something. All right.
Isn't that just ranking in general? Just you have a ranking and then you hate yourself for it. That sounds like ranking.
Yeah, pretty much. So all of them you're just going to start. There is a series against the Yankees and the Astros by the end of it, but you just start these guys. Giants are a little more interesting.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I guess the big question is also we are expecting that Robbie Ray isn't going to miss this Marlins start. But it's been
we don't know.
It's a little quiet on the news front since he left that game the other day.
Yeah, we highlighted all players who have these injury questions in red. So Robbie Ray, we don't know. It's a hamstring tightness, and that could mean an IL stint. It could not. The problem here is if he misses that Miami starting, essentially it's IL or whatever it is. It's at Padres, it's the Brewers, it's at Baltimore, it's at Arizona, and then St. Louis. And would I start a healthy Robbie Ray? Yes. Would I start a still ill Robbie Ray? I don't know. And it's really tough with decision making right now with him. I don't know who would replace him in the rotation. Maybe Sean Jelly. I don't know. Probably not. Maybe someone from the minors that I'm not aware of. And keep in mind, that's the most annoying part about all this too, is that I'm not really including minor league guys in here. I'll put in the team notes. But otherwise, inside of this, I mean, Webb and Snell, you're going to start. Hayden Birdsong is just a complete desperate streamer for strikeouts. And same with Kyle Harrison, because Harrison does not have a good schedule. It's at Milwaukee, Arizona, at San Diego, and then at Kansas City and at Arizona. None of these I go, oh yeah, cool. This is the one I go for with Kyle Harrison.
Right. So, and we've been on the fence about him a little bit throughout the year, so that's not a major surprise. We've got 6 names here also penciled in to the Cardinals. Lance Lynn coming back. Andre Palante is still in there. So how are you handling this Cardinals rotation?
So Kyle Gibson is a do whichever you want, guys. I'm probably just not going to do it. You have Miles Michaelis. He gets Cincinnati and the Pirates, I guess. So if you're desperate for that, okay. But I just don't really think Miles Michaelis is very good. And maybe if you need 6 innings, fine. Andre Palante is actually kind of interesting against Milwaukee, Cincinnati, and the Pirates. Maybe you still want to do it against the Padres and you just Vargas roll it. You have Sonny Gray, who I think you're just going to always start. You have Eric Fede, who you might want to stream against the Mariners at Toronto and Pittsburgh, but you definitely don't want to hold for the Yankees. And I don't really feel like you need to stash through it. And Lance Lynn is supposed to come back this week, and I have zero interest in him.
Boom. None. Not even a little. Great beard, Lance Lynn. Rays. Crowded now. Jeffrey Springs back in there. We got Tyler Anderson spot starting a little bit, but maybe Zach Littell will come back. Taj Bradley not looking, great over the last stretch, and then gets a brutal start to the schedule. Shane Baz has the flu, probably got sick from looking at his upcoming starts.
So, yeah, I hope that Shane Baz is fine. I think if you have him, you should generally be starting him. I know it's the Phillies and the Guardians in there, also Fenway. Maybe I should actually be putting him in a different tier as I say this out loud, because that's pretty risky. But it is the Twins, it is the Jays. I think I'm cool with those. I think I'm cool with the Padres too. It's tough for him. Taj Bradley is a complete cherry bomb, so who knows? Tyler Alexander, you could consider streaming him early against the Mariners and Twins, but I don't really want to do that. I'm going to just say that to do not start. And then you have Springs, who you're just going to go, obviously, through pretty much. Maybe not the Baltimore start, maybe not the Guardians, but for the most part, you're going to do it. Same with Ryan Pepio. I think that both of those guys have established themselves at a level that is worthwhile.
Yeah. We're getting such good results. We're getting such a good stretch from Baz. And it's a little bummed to see the schedule look the way it does. It is not a bummer to see the schedule look the way it does for Andrew Heaney here for the Rangers. And then look at those names in the middle of the Rangers projected starting pitcher list.
It's unreal. So you have Heaney, who actually just has a really good stretch. There's no above average offense. And he did just have a good game exploiting the Pirates. I hope that sticks. He's someone to actually consider as a solid, hey, you might just hold this and that'll be fine. Jack Leiter's showing up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited about this. If you don't know about Jack Leiter, he throws four-seamers really hard with a ton of vert on them. He has an elite four-seamer. The question is, does he have enough of a secondary array that complements it? And really, I'm going to be
pitching much better recently.
I hope so. He was always doing well in the minors, and then it was bad in the majors, and then he was good in the minors, and he came up for a moment, it was bad in the majors. It's this is the kind of the thing of Jack Leiter. So I really hope that he blows us away against the White Sox. Fortunately, then it would be the Yankees after. Then the big question is, what is going to happen with Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom? I don't know. The late series that the Rangers have include the Angels, the Mariners, and the Angels. There's also the Jays and Athletics in there too. It's bonkers how good it is. And the guy that I don't know is how much he's going to start, and he should, is Cody Bradford. There was a thought that he'd get replaced by John Gray or someone else in this. You can't. You cannot remove Cody Bradford. You're holding him throughout it. Tyler Mahle might be in here too at some point, and in return from the IL, he could get those good matchups. He could get the Yankees in Arizona instead. So I'm kind of out on Mahle, but I would be open to the Jays and Athletics or any of those later ones after the Arizona series to see if he is doing something better with his four-seamer and so on. And Nathan Eovaldi, as long as you're healthy, buddy, we're doing it.
Yeah.
He would have an amazing schedule, say for a series in New York or against New York. But yeah, it's a little bit of confusion here all around. I would pay very close attention to the Rangers rotation.
And as I say, that confusion can give you opportunities in your fantasy leagues while people are trying to figure out what's going on. You've got tons of matchups we want to target here, and maybe some good pitchers to do it with.
And John Gray's here.
John Gray. He is
back.
Oh my gosh. He is back. Nick, are you telling people that after the stretch that Bowden Francis has gone on, that he needs to be benched or cut because he gets Boston and Philadelphia's next?
It's tough because that Angels series, I think seeing Gosman the next day have pretty much a similar result is you shouldn't put stock in it. I'm sorry. Hayden Birdsong had 12 strikeouts against the Rockies. See what happened? These games occur against bad lineups, and then going to Fenway and the Phillies, I can't do that. However, Francis would get the Mets and then at Texas, at the Rays and the Marlins after. And so fine, I might even consider him as a late streamer as opposed to an early. But the thing is, you're not going to get an opportunity for that. People are just going to hold, and that's it. So I'm torn on this. I would not be starting Bowden Francis. I don't think his fastball is that good. I don't really think his whole arsenal is that good. The splitter being this big thing now in the zone, great. I just can't really buy in on it. I'm more interested in Jose Barrios. After this Fenway thing, he gets the Twins in Atlanta and Seattle. Sorry, St. Louis, the Rangers in Boston, and just seems a little bit safer to me, despite him being the great undulator. If you have Chris Bassett, even with the Red Sox and Phillies, you're just going to start him. And that's that. And same with Kevin Gausman, who doesn't get either of those two dangerous offenses. So the biggest question really is just Bowden Francis. I don't want to touch Yariel Rodriguez. Do what you guys want. I could be wrong. It's in 4 starts. I get it. I've been many times wrong about these guys where they're just doing well. And I'm like, this shouldn't happen, but it works. And you just keep going. So Vargas rule if you want, but man, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you?
Tough. Yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Okay. You scared me for a second because it said yeah.
It's been tough because we were talking about him throughout most of the year.
I know.
And so there's a part of me that like doesn't want to give up. I also don't like giving up after good stretches, but you have to. You gotta be cutthroat this time of year. Can't hold on. But you know what you can hold on to is the strikeout upside of DJ Hers.
That was cool.
Good outing, and then much better stretch. And look, like that is potentially a waiver move you can make, right? Like if you had Bowden Francis and DJ Hers is on your wire and Hers gets the Cubs, the Pirates, and the Marlins, like you're trying to win, right? Let's say you're in a head-to-head format where it's playoffs, right? You can't say like, oh, my ratios are okay, or I'm in my, whatever my standings are in Roto. Like you need to pick up wins. You need to pick up strikeouts, and DJ Hers looked good. We have talked a lot about his overall upside, with command being the major thing holding him back. If the command continues to at least be passable, like those 3 starts, and then the Mets Cubs again after that, like those aren't starts you run from.
Yeah. So I keep saying, hey, right now value, those starts are happening. Get them, right? We're talking about Bowden Francis. That's in 2-3 weeks that we actually really want him. I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know what the situation will be then. If I know that DJ Hers is starting this week against the Cubs, I think I'd rather go with that. It's that simple. Jake Irvin is very much of a just desperate stream at this point because the curveball's gone and he just has not been himself. Mackenzie Gore, you can't do it. I'm sorry. He's seen Miami twice, and me saying I can't do it is kind of nuts, but that's the case we're in. And Patrick Corbin, I gotta at least say the cutter was better last time. Yes, the Yankees fine, but then it's Miami, Pittsburgh, Miami, and like there's just this part of me that feels as if Corbin's gonna kill it for those 3 good matchups. There's no way. Mitchell Parker's a much better get. After this Yankees one, I would target him for the Cubs, Pirates, and Marlins, and maybe even the Mets after that. So that's a sneaky one there, I think, with Mitchell Parker. But yeah, Parker and Hers are absolutely the guys to focus on here. But man, for the deepest of deep leagues, Patrick Corbin's just kind of staring you in the face, and it's like, you might get like 18 innings there in those 3 games.
Yeah. Listen, I have a friend who's in a head-to-head, and he has a bye this week, and so he was like, who's a pitcher who might have like a good 2-start week in 2 weeks? And I was like looking through the schedule, and I was like, can I tell this dude to pick up Patrick Corbin?
Right?
Can
Miami,
I really be like, you should pick up Patrick Corbin, Miami, Pittsburgh, Miami? I'm like, do you want to go into your playoffs with him? I don't know, but also like maybe you do.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. It's tough.
It's bonkers.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now really quickly, we only have a couple minutes, but after this break, we're going to go over the guys that we really feel like are good targets now and good targets later who might be on your waiver wire. We'll talk about all that after this break. All right, Eric. So I have this early streamer, late streamer, Toby's and Bombs here sorted that you guys can see on the website. It's for the list. Eric, which ones are you looking at with the early and late streamers that you think like, oh yeah, those are the guys that I really want to go for?
Early streamer, late streamer. I'm pulling it up right now. You want me to go? Let's go early streamer first.
Yeah.
I mean, we have been like, I want pitchers that I think are talented pitchers too, which I mean, doesn't sound like a groundbreaking strategy, but I think sometimes when we get into like, hey, we're fully streaming, you look at the matchups and you're just attacking the matchup, but I want to trust the pitcher, right? So like there are guys on here like Randy Vasquez and Joey Estes and Adam Aller, and like I can't go there because I don't trust the pitcher as much as like I trust Jamison Tyone. And like Pittsburgh, I like those two starts. I trust Martin Perez. I know that's wild to hear, but like Martin Perez has had long stretches in multiple years in his career where he has been a really solid pitcher. I mean, he had that 1 year where he was basically an ace, but like a really solid pitcher. And like Tampa, Detroit, Seattle, like that's a pretty good 3 stretch of games.
Yeah.
So that's where I lean. Like those are the 2 names that jump out to me. Kind of Quintana, White Sox, Reds. The Reds are in Citi Field, but that he'd probably be my 3rd on that list.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, some others to really think about that I have in the Tobies and Bombs are like Albert Suarez against the White Sox will appear. Falter against the Nationals and Marlins after his Cleveland start. Something to consider. Maybe even Colin Ray against the Cardinals and Giants after he goes against the Reds. Those are the kind of guys. Maybe you mentioned DJ Hurts too. The Cubs, Pittsburgh, and Miami more available in leagues as well. Last one I'll say is Frankie Montas, Rocky Road, and Giants after the Cincinnati one. Those were in Tobies and Bombs, to be fair, and not in this kind of just only very limited moment. I like those choices that you had. I would say for the late streamer side, which you didn't get to, I would say Andre Pollack is someone to consider. Against the Reds and Pirates. He's been doing far better than expected. The cut fastball just kind of working over the plate. And Cade Povich is someone to circle, I think, against the Tigers for 2 starts. That is an interesting moment. And he could, I mean, that's in 2 separate weeks, but there's win potential there that could be very valuable. And also really with the Royals pitchers, Lorenzen and Waka, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Washington, Pittsburgh, and Giants and Washington, respectively there. Those guys are often available and could be very, very sneaky.
That's what I was going to say. That's where I go because, again, do I trust the pitcher? I trust Lorenzen. I trust Waka. Yeah. I don't think that they are like going to set the world on fire type of starters, but I think they're starters who you can trust and rely on in those games.
And I don't want to forget Zach Littell is going to be coming back from injury, and the final series for the Rays are going to be versus Boston and at Detroit. And there is something for Littell to play for. His worth. He's trying to showcase that I'm still good and I'm worthy of being in a ball club. He's going to be proving himself in those 2 starts. So you might want to consider that.
Also important to consider that, like, when you get to those last starts, I mean, you mentioned the last starts aren't given for the pitchers, but the lineups we may see are also going to be drastically different. And that could be because teams get eliminated. They turn fully over to like, what the Tigers are doing now and the White Sox are doing now of like just calling up young guys and letting them hit. You may see some teams who get eliminated start to do that as well. You may also see guys who are playing through injuries. If their teams get eliminated or if they clinch playoffs, even maybe I'm not playing through that injury anymore. Right. If I'm battling a hamstring injury, hand injury, whatever it is, and we're locked into a playoff spot or we're eliminated. Now it's like, all right, what is the value of playing through that injury? I'm going to take some time off and rest. So always keep an eye on that as well as we get through this, because you might see more good matchups emerge if we start to, get some guys rested or out of the lineup.
And by the way, if you can still get Zebby Matthews, what are you doing? Jays, Rays, Angels, next 3 starts. Like, you have to lean into that right now. It does get worse after that, but really the fact that I was able to use them as my streamer yesterday was bonkers. Yeah. And you got to move on that one. All right. I think that's going to do it this week, Eric. We got it just inside of the time that we needed to. We went through every single team. Oh my gosh. Amazing.
We did it, people. And this will get a little shorter as the season goes on, because obviously there's fewer games to do.
Of course.
And we're going to be a little less cutthroat coming up in the next episodes, because we know, you at this point know the context of what we're doing, and we can actually go through some of these matchups and try to talk to you a little bit more about like ads and drops and, more stock up, stock down, less wholesale look at everything.
Right. Exactly.
But thanks for joining us. Yeah. And you're going to join us again. We are next Monday, Labor Day weekend. We're going to be recording later at night. Not in the middle.
I'm going to still do the list on Monday because I got to get it done. But I will be recording late at night.
Yes. If you like watching us live on YouTube, seeing our faces, that's going to be like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. We'll let you know. But that's going to do it for us. I am Eric Samulski, the Pelican.
I'm Nick Pollack, the Lion.
And I'm going to try to go digest this entire list right now before I make my fantasy moves. We'll check you guys later.
Bye-bye.